What's up? Hope you're doing well today. Today we're talking about progression in the gym. One of the most frequent questions I get is people asking me just for a framework of how to make progression. They feel like if they can just figure out how to consistently make progress, they'll be good to go. So I'm sharing with you my thought process and how I do it, with the hopes that you'll be able to learn from this and then apply it to your own program and do it yourself. So let's get right into it. Here's the framework. Here's kind of the summary note. Right, you start with your goal, then how you measure it, your progression method, then consistency, how long you stick with it, look at the results, and based on that, you repeat, right? So let's start with the first item, the goal, right? So to understand the goal, let's understand what fitness is to begin with. Fitness in general is just your ability to perform physical work. Now, what physical work do you want to do? Do you want to, do you want to bench more? Do you want to get stronger? Do you want to get better at running? You just got to identify a goal and a specific goal, right? The more specific, the better, because it'll allow you to hone in your adaptation that you want to pursue, right? So adaptation is being able to pursue the same work, but at a lower physiological cost. What does that mean? You can do the same thing easier. So if you want to bench more, just benching 2 plates is your max. Now you can do it for 10. So progression is just the act of taking these two things, right, and going from your baseline level of fitness, adapting and raising that baseline level of fitness so you're at a higher level, right? In order to do that, you got to identify your goal so you know excuse me, what adaptations you want to pursue, right? Help clarify the big picture, so then the little stuff becomes easier. Next, we're going on to measurement. So you got your goal. Now, how are you going to measure your progress? You need to pick something that's an accurate test for your goal. If you want to run a mile, you're not going to be tracking your 1 rep bench, right? And also, don't let the measure become the mark. A good example I've always heard for this is the test for car quality is generally 0 to 60, right? How fast can a Ferrari go 0 to 60? Well, it doesn't really matter if you're a soccer mom who needs to take 7 kids to school every day, right? So, however you're measuring your quality, it's got to match up with your goal, right? So that's just something to be aware of. Now, third, we got the progression method. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of the whole system, right? So you got your goal, you got how you're tracking it. Let's just say you want to get in shape, right? So your goal is just get in shape. How am I going to measure it? I'm going to measure it with my mile time. Okay. Now, how am I going to increase my mile time? We're going to get into a couple different diagrams here. Side note, I did record this video earlier, so I got a lot of extra notes on here. It might be a little messy. Just stick with me. But the first model to help you understand progression is the stress recovery adaptation model, SRA. Basically, it's in order to increase your ability, you start with the stress, right? Start with stress. You're at homeostasis, you start with the stress. Your body's got to recover from that stress. Then after it recovers, you've adapted. After you've adapted, your level of fitness has gone up, right? So that's what this chart is saying. Boom. You got your baseline ability starting at homeostasis right here. Let me switch my pen color so it's a little bit easier for you to tell where I'm working. Starting right here at our baseline ability of fitness, right? The stress is applied during our training sessions, right? Stress is applied, then our ability goes down. We're tired, right? Let me change the thickness of this pen too, just so it's a little less cumbersome, right? So we're a little tired, so our ability goes down while we recover, right? This is important. It's going to happen. That's why you can't train the same muscle every day and get the best result, just because this little effect here. But you let that take place, ride the wave, boom. Afterwards, after we recover and grow, our ability is now greater. Now this baseline level of homeostasis that we started at is up here. That's what this line, and that's what this line represents. This dotted line is homeostasis, right? And this change from A to B, this is the adaptation. This guy right here. So it's this continuous cycle. Training is this continuous cycle of starting at homeostasis, starting at your baseline, applying stress, then recovering from it and becoming more fit or more able. You do that into infinity, and that's pretty much the whole game, right? Now, we're increasing abilities. Which abilities are we increasing, right? So let's say here, what I guess a better way to phrase that is what factors are contributing to that ability, right? So let's just say we're looking at our bench press, our ability to bench 1 rep for our max. Okay, so some of the factors that contribute to that contribute to strength, are going to be muscle mass, endurance, and coordination. So those kind of form the base of the pyramid model. That's what we got here. This is the, if I can scroll up a little bit, this is the pyramid or base peak model. The idea being that if we build a wide and strong base or foundation of contributing physical traits, right, then the peak of our ability will go up. So let's just say we want to increase our bench press, and we want to focus on muscle mass right here. So that means we're focusing on this area of the pyramid. Obviously, you can't do all things at one time, but we're focusing on this one. It's going to widen it out a little bit, right? By widening our foundation, we now have a bigger foundation to build off of, right? You know, bigger, wider foundation is more sturdy for a house, right? You can fit a bigger house on it. So now this peak is now taller. Now we have more ability. Our bench goes from 2 plates to 3 plates, right? So tying these two things together, we want to go back to our goal, right? Our original goal is we're running a mile. Okay. Now we want to get in shape. Now we're measuring that by our mile time. What are some of the contributing factors to our ability to run a mile time? Okay. We got how strong are we? Are we strong enough to generate force to go fast? Do our muscles have endurance to run for 1 mile? And are we coordinated enough to, be efficient? Do we look like a baby gazelle, or do we look like a cheetah when we run, right? So those things will form the base of the pyramid, and then we can pick different. Then we can train them systematically, applying stress and adapting to them. Now, once we've here are some important things to touch on as well. Once we've identified those abilities, it's important to focus on weaknesses too, right? If its strength is a strength, it's good to maximize those, but you also are only as strong as your weakest link. So picking a weakness can help you identify good things to hone in on your training. And then you can't do too many things at one time. Don't turn too many dials. Dials just being the variables, right? Mass, endurance, coordination. Or excuse me, we'll get to that in a second. You can't do everything at once. You can be a jack of all trades, but you can't be a master of all of them at the same time. And then also an important thing to consider is that you want to go general to specific, right? One, obviously start with the simplest solution and go from there. But also, the newer you are to training, the more things will work for you. But the more trained you are, so the more experience you get, the more specific you have to be, right? So if it's your first day in the gym, you can probably just do a bench press and your whole upper body is going to get stronger. But if you've been powerlifting for 10 years, right, you're pretty highly adapted to that. Now you need to focus more on specific weaknesses or lifts in your training because, just the same old thing isn't going to cut it, right? You've already adapted to that stimulus. Now you need to try and find weaknesses to build on. Going back to this, don't turn too many dials. Dials is going to be your progression method, right? So I had this example here. Progression method, there's a lot of variables you can use in your training, right? How many reps am I doing? Let's do the bench press example because it's easier. How many reps am I doing? How intense are those reps? Is it easy or am I dead at the end of my set? How much volume am I doing? So total work, right? Sets times reps. How much work am I doing in a certain amount of time? These are all things you can change, right? You can increase, instead of 3 sets of 10, you could do 3 sets of 12. They could be 3 easy sets of 12, or they could be 3 hard sets, right? You see where I'm going with this. You don't want to do too many things at one time because one, you can't adapt to them all. I mean, you could if you're super new, but it's not the most efficient. And also, you're not going to know what's working. I have this example right here. Let's say you're bench pressing and you start with 3 sets of 10, right? 3 sets, 10 reps. Pretty standard stuff. The next week, you switch it up to 5 sets, 6 reps, right? The next week, you do 10 sets of 1 reps. So these 2 weeks, we're doing the same amount of reps, but now we've manipulated both the sets, the reps, and probably the intensity, and maybe the amount of time, right? Because 5 sets is gonna take longer than 3. You're probably using heavier weight, and it's a different rep scheme. So that's 3 different things we're changing. How are you gonna know which one is working for you? Same thing here. Now we're doing way less reps, probably way more intense reps, also probably gonna take longer. Again, you gotta think of it like a science experiment. You kind of almost want to isolate a single variable and change that. That way you know what's working and what's not. So that's a big thing I consider. I pick, okay, I want to start with 3 sets of 12, and then I'm going to stick with that and see if I can't increase my weight each week on that 3 sets of 12. That way I know that I'm getting stronger because I'm doing the same thing both weeks, but I'm stronger, right? I'm not, there's a lot more nuance to it than that, but that's the simplest way I can break it down for you. Pick one way, pick one thing, and just get better at that. After you've done that, so let's say, going back to our mile example, let's say you're running a mile. The way you want to do that is volume, right? I want to pursue just running more because I haven't run. Once you've picked that method, you have to stick to it. That's what I was talking about earlier. When you pick a method, you stick to it. One, because it allows you to track your progress, but two, if you can't switch before adaptation takes place, or else you'll get nowhere. I have this compounding interest example right here. If you know anything about the stock market, right? You're 20 years old, you put some money in, you leave it sit there for a while, right? And it's going to go up, and you're going to retire a millionaire, hopefully. But you take that same money, and you take it out after a year. And you put some more in, and you take it out after a year. Put some more in, you take it out. You never get that compounding interest. You never really see that progress because you stop it short every time. So this kind of ties back into what we were talking about with this adaptation thing. If you switch it up, you're never going to see this adaptation, right? You're never going to see this. So that's why it's important to pick one thing and stick to it. That way you can adapt to it and track your progress. And there's also a skill aspect, right? The more you do something, the more your brain gets better at doing it. You become more efficient naturally. Your body is just going to find, we talked about homeostasis earlier, your body's going to find the easiest possible solution. So the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it, and you'll also adapt to it. Going off of that, so you've picked your mile, you've done the training. Now, let's look at our progress. After we finish our program, we've done it for a month or two, you got to be objective and audit our progress. Is what we're doing working? Have I reached my goal? Am I where I want to be? And then, based upon this result, you're going to make changes if you need to. But if you don't need to, if you're still making progress, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You want to milk those gains for as long as possible, and don't make a change until you have to. That's important. Like I said, if you're riding this compound interest wave, right? It's still working. You don't want to cut it short just because you want to do something different. You probably want to go until you hit these diminishing returns right here. Okay, now I see I'm not really making an increase anymore week to week. It's been a month since my last PR. Okay, let's change something. Let's make a change. And then, based upon these results, you're just going to make your changes or not and repeat the program. So I have an example here. We're just going to kind of simplify this mile example I've been getting, right? Just say you're new to fitness. It's a new year. Common resolution is you want to get in shape, right? We're tracking that with the mile time. Let's say you run it one time, you're like 15-minute mile. Week 1, you run a 15-minute mile. Okay, that's your starting point. That's how I'm measuring my level of fitness. Now, how do I want to progress that level of fitness? Okay, I'm picking volume. I haven't run a lot. I'm just going cold turkey. So I want to ease into it. I'm just going to start with 1 day of running a week. And then I'm just going to add one each day or each week, right? So week 2, I'll do 2 days of running, 1 mile each. Week 3, I'll do 3 days of running, 1 mile each. the amount of volume I'm doing is going up, but I'm not really running them any faster. I'm just kind of getting out there, doing a mile, getting out. I'll do this for about 7 weeks, and the 8th week I'll test my max, right? So I get there and I test my mile again, and I hit 12 minutes. Okay, that's an increase. I'm still pretty new to this. That's audit. Okay, the goal worked. It seems to be still working for me, right? There's nothing. Generally, adaptations take like 6 to 8 weeks, and there's nothing that's going to lead me to believe that training with more volume might not work for me. So maybe I'll repeat it. But 7 days of running is a lot. Maybe that's tough on my schedule. So these are the kind of decisions you have to make. Okay, maybe I want to run, half a mile, but I'll just do it faster. And then you also going back to that weakness point I was talking about earlier. Let's say I ran this 12 miles, and I was just exhausted by the end of it. I felt like I couldn't take another step at this pace. Okay, so then maybe endurance is my issue, and maybe going forward, I'll do 1.5 miles, or maybe I ran it and I felt great after 12 minutes. I ran my mile. I wasn't really that tired, but I just felt like I couldn't really run that fast. I just and my stride wasn't that good. Okay, so then maybe power or force production is your problem. So maybe you want to work some sprinting work, right? Or maybe you ran it and it's just like your coordination was off, right? You're running like a baby gazelle. So then you maybe want to do some more drill work, right? More running technique work. I don't know why there's an arrow there. I don't need it. But these are the types of things that you factor in to your decision to repeat during the auditing process, and then you start the goal over, or you pick a new goal if you want to. So, going back to the beginning, summarizing it, that is an example of how I put this framework into practice in my programming. And let's just summarize all this again. The goal, boom, you have to start with this. This is your destination. This is the big picture. You got to have the big picture so you know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, you'll be lost and you'll just kind of wander around forever. So this is where you're going. Your measurement is how you're tracking your progress there. This is like how many miles it is to your destination. Okay, or how fast I'm going to my destination. Then we got our progression method. This is our road map. This is how we're getting to here. This is the key to getting to our destination. This is A to B measured by the measurement, by goal 2. Then consistency, follow the path, right? There's no point in having a map if you're not going to follow it. So consistency to follow the roadmap to the goal. Then you get there, you're like, okay, I'm where I wanted to be. Did I take the most efficient route? I'm auditing. Okay, could I have taken an easier path? Did I go over a mountain when I could have gone over a molehill, right? Or did I take the best route, and maybe I should keep doing this going forward? Then I'm going to use this information to assess my goal. Do I still have the same goal? Do I want to keep going forward with this? And then just repeat the cycle into infinity, because the game never stops. There's always something to train for. But this is how you can train for it forever. So hope this helps you. Hope you took something away from this. And hope you make some great progress in the future. And I hope you have a great day. That's all I got for you. See ya.